I want to tackle some things in this video. Basically, this is going to be me riffing on some actual comments that I've gotten in my YouTube time, okay, WitchTube time. Some actual comments that I've gotten from people that could be construed trolly, okay, about what they could say witchcraft is, okay, and then kind of, I guess, elaborate on my own personal takes about what witchcraft actually is. All right. The first comment that I want to talk about is the one that says, the first comment that I got was, it was that witchcraft is a rebellion. It's a way to like stick it to my parents, okay? And like, because I was raised in a, one type of religion, and I decided to move away from that, but not only, like, this commenter really went in depth into saying, not only did you choose a different path, a different religion, you went to the opposite of what you were raised in. So naturally, that's a rebellion. And the biggest thing I could say about that is that rebellion only works if you're, like, say your parents who you're supposed to be sticking it to would know. I'm very much in the broom closet still. None of my family knows my practice, knows that I consider and identify as a witch. No one even knows, like, if I were to just dip my toe in and say I'm pagan or something huge umbrella like that, I don't even come out and tell them that kind of stuff. I still, as a grown-ass adult, okay, I still get lectured by members of my actual family about going to church, about God, about how I need to be doing this and I need to be doing that, okay? And I've had to deal with some really hard boundaries between me and my family over spirituality and what I should be doing as an adult. Okay, especially because I have children. A lot of the family members that I have tend to tell me in these lectures, okay, that because I don't go to church and have a church community, they call it a church family where I'm at, when you don't have a church family, you're actually doing harm to your children. Okay, my family has actually said that before. Now, I'm not going to riff on anything, any kind of religious experience or religious paths right now. I just want to say that's not my path. And for someone to genuinely come out and tell me that it's just, I just want to stick it to my parents, okay? The only way that that would work, like, okay, so, like anyone that's in a teenage rebellion, your parents know when you're doing stuff for attention, right? Like, a rebellion is wanting to do what you want to do when you want to do it. You're kind of sticking it to your parents in a way that's like, look, I want to be treated like an adult. I want some more respect and some more responsibility, especially like young teenagers, like around 15, like as I'm dealing with right now with my own teenagers. They want the respectability, but they don't want the responsibility that comes around with that. So that's something that you have to deal with. But the parents always are kind of in the know. You get back talked a lot, okay? It's not something that's like hidden. Rebellion's not hidden usually. Okay. So to that commenter, and to the witchcraft is a rebellion, I just have to say no to that, because none of the people that I would seemingly be rebelling against don't even know. They just think that I'm this, like, unreligious, unspiritual person sitting in my house on my ass all day. Okay, not doing anything with God. Okay, that's what they think. They don't know of my practice and anything like that. So the fact that this comment just kind of falls flat. After I got that comment, I didn't develop my thick skin, my thick skin for YouTube yet, and it hurt a little, because I was like, what if they're right? Right? So I did dive into that. Okay, and I thought, what if this is a way to, like, sever the apron strings, as my mama would say, in an internal and maybe even an subconscious way? Is like, it's a rebellion and an internal rebellion, right? Like, it's not an outward projection of rebellion. It's more about, like, I chose the opposite side of the religion I was born under, as a way to really sever the ties. The next comment I actually got, and these are from, like, whenever. They're not in any kind of particular order, okay, but whatever. So the next comment that I have actually gotten before about witchcraft is that it's a crutch, okay? Now, that would mean that I'm literally hobbling along on my witchcraft practice. It's just there. It's just there. It's just there. The magic is just there. And I can just grab it and go whenever I need to. And it acts as like, it acts as a crutch that, like, someone actually said, you know, witchcraft is nothing but a crutch, right? And I got to thinking, okay, what exactly do you mean by this? Do you mean that it's like you can use it for anything, right? Like, the only reason people would go to magic or witchcraft is because it's readily available and you don't have to work for it. It's just like you pluck it off your nightstand whenever you need it and blast people, and you don't have to know anything. You don't have to do anything else but just like pluck it right off from wherever it is and get to doing magic. I don't know. I just seem to think that witchcraft takes more than that, than it being something readily available where I don't have to know much about it. It's just something that I can pluck out of the sky when my life goes to shit, or when things aren't going my way, maybe. I don't know. I think we're going to touch on that in the next one, but it's somehow like, the comment made me think that witchcraft is somehow like a method for which we could get anything and everything and that we'd ever want and desire. And that's the only reason that we would go to it. But also almost like, I think that a crutch could mean that it's like the placebo, right? Like, it works because we think it works, and we're just putting on this kind of rebellious, childlike emotion into our lives that has actually no practicality, which, if, you know, for the witches out there, we know that there is some actual practicality to witchcraft, but that it's something that you do have to work for, and it's not something that is, it's not something that's like just readily available to us, but and I'm not saying that there might not be magical practitioners and witches out there that don't utilize witchcraft as a crutch. Like, they're just like, oh, I got to do magic for that. Oh, I got to do magic for that. Oh, I got to do magic for that. You know, I'm not saying that those practitioners aren't out there. I'm just saying I don't think that witchcraft as an umbrella is a crutch for, like, I guess in a total sense. It just doesn't make sense, because there's been so much learning, and there's been so much learning for me inside of my craft and inside of my practice, that having it, and the big thing here is that I don't always go to my magic. Like, if, like, say my life was something, okay, and it was something pretty mundane, right? And not something necessarily that maybe any practitioner would probably go to magic for. You try to do the mundane working first, right? Like, okay, let's just see what I can do first, and then you go to your magic, right? If it doesn't. But then there's so many times where I look back in hindsight and I'm like, why didn't I perform a spell for this? I mean, literally, I would look at myself in the mirror going, okay, I've been racking my brain about blah, 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 blah for so long. Why didn't I just go to my craft with it? And so that's another huge reason that I wouldn't consider it a crutch all the time, because I don't utilize it like that. The next one is a doozy, okay? The next one is a doozy. And a comment that I got was that a lot of what you say, when it was a witchcraft video, a lot of what you say sounds just sounds like escapism. Okay. So many of the practices, right? Especially if someone is watching, let's say they're watching a magic or witchcraft video and they don't understand it, right? Like there's some there are confusing elements to some of the things that someone would talk about, then sure, it can be confusing, and it could sound like escapism, and it can sound like a crutch or any of the other ones, and it can sound confusing, and it can be, I think a lot of the magical practices that might be utilized could be misconstrued as escapism. And it's like these people seem to think that it's like a way to escape from the real life. Okay, we are thinking that we're witches and wizards of old, and we're these, I don't know, these lightning bearing witches that's I don't know, like it's a delusion, right? And like like when we manifest things and put things out into the YouTube world about being a witch and performing magic, that somehow we're sucking people into our delusions, like we're believing our own delusions in some kind of manic psychosis, okay? Some of that, sometimes I think that maybe someone that could say that witchcraft is an escapism, maybe they think that we're locked inside of our head all the time. Maybe that we're like, we're putting our lives up on a pedestal, that because, oh, we're witches and we get things done and we do this and this and this, which doesn't make sense to me, but I'm going to tell you anyway that none of this will actually apply to real life. So therefore you're just stuck in your head in this kind of ritual mindset all the time, this witch magic mindset all the time. It's again a derogatory take on childlike wonder, I believe. I think that so many people don't understand how enchantment and wonder can play into adult life, because adult life is hard and it can be tricky. So therefore people who go to magic about things, it's got to be an escapism. It's got to be a way to escape. But here's what I want to say, okay? Nothing against my video game players, okay? I am one. My whole entire family loves video games, okay? But how is witchcraft, well, don't come at me, okay? But how is witchcraft any different than you coming home and needing an escape for a little while and you get on the game for an hour and a half or 2 hours? How is it any different than me coming over to my like witchy space and sitting in sacred space for 2 hours? Any different than you getting and plugging in, headphones on, the whole world doesn't exist, you're just in Call of Duty, like blah, 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 blah. Okay, how is it any different? It's not, okay? The only thing I could say about that is that to me, it would be different because that is an actual fictional world that people probably in some kind of cool pop culture witchcraft, you could utilize the players and the characters and some of the themes that you find in video games in your witchcraft. So I think that's cool. But witchcraft has actual practical elements to it that even if it were placebo, it doesn't matter. There's been scientific proof that placebo is good, okay? And that placebo works. It's been corroborated. So I don't know. And I don't know if video game placebo, I don't know the right term for that, but you playing a form of video game to escape would be a form of placebo. I'm not sure about that. If you know, let me know below. But I think escapism can be good for us because it's like daydreaming, right? For me, daydreaming and imagination play really big roles in my witchcraft. So to have moments, and even long moments, like 2 hours, where I'm sitting in sacred space and I'm in this meditative, unfocused, altered state of consciousness, that works out to something, right? Like I'm doing it for something, or I'm doing it to calm down. I'm doing it to release. I'm doing it, I mean, there's all kinds of intentions with, you know, the calm down, count backwards from 10 thing, okay? But breath work, meditation, anything like that, it causes the brain to calm down. So but then they could overlap. There could be a Venn diagram there where the escapism could form a crutch, where you're at your 9-to-5 job and then from 6 o'clock, you get home at 6 o'clock at night till midnight, until you pass out in your chair, you're playing that game, then that's when escapism can turn into a crutch. But I don't, and again, people might utilize their witchcraft and magic like that, but I don't see it, again, umbrella termed like that. I don't think that to say that all witchcraft and all magic practices are escapism is unfair. Because there's so many of us that either don't always go to their magic, and when they do, they have actual intentions behind why they're doing what they're doing. We're human. So there are some times where all of them are going to overlap, and our emotions are going to take the better of us, and then we're going to be rife with emotion, our emotions are going to be spilling out everywhere, hitting everyone, okay, like lava flow, and we go to our witchcraft out of an emotional need, okay? Like we go and we're like say we're furious about something. We're just, oh, here's some magic and here's some magic and here's, I'm gonna anoint this candle and do this and I'll put this thing in this bag and throw it across the yard, like whatever, okay? sometimes your emotions can get the better of you too. And sometimes your magic takes the brunt of that. But I think that all of these can be misconstrued, especially from people that don't understand witchcraft. But I never see them as these things. I see them as I see witchcraft as a delicate balance between them all, actually. And I think that everything in the universe, the universe is infinite, and I don't necessarily believe that any of the things that I would talk about today are inherently evil or inherently bad to you as a human, or to me, because I'm talking about myself. The next comment was something about witchcraft being a loophole, right? Like somehow it's a fine print. It's the fine print in the bottom of a contract that no one ever reads, but that is gonna come back and bite you on the ass. Refer to my Does Magic Have a Price video, okay? I'll leave that below for you. Because I kind of go into some thoughts, because I like to philosophize stuff like this and ruminate on it like this, okay, in the air. Like just put the thoughts right here and have people chew on them for a little while. So I kind of made a video already about this, about does magic have a price? When you do something, or it's reciprocal, right? So I kind of touch on that already in that video. So I'll leave that below. The loophole is probably, the statement about it being a loophole is probably gearing towards when we can't get what we want, then we go to the fine print. We go to the witchcraft, right? And it's probably for those people, and I don't remember what I said in that video to make this person comment this, but it was probably something along the lines of like, it's a loophole because I would only go to it when my emotions are high, or to find that loophole in the contract, right? Like to find the definitive way that I could get what I want, right? And it's somehow this like, I don't know, this weird authority that I have over myself that I'm like, well, if so-and-so is not going to get me what I want, then witchcraft will, okay? If this won't happen for me, then witchcraft will, you know? Like that's kind of what the vibe I got from this comment about it being a loophole. It's like a no meaning, nihilistic, but ever enforced way to live, right? Like everything you could potentially do to get what you want, none of it has any meaning, but yet it's anything you would do is enforced upon you, right? Like in this contractual way. So I laughed a little bit about that because I don't know. I can only philosophize what the hell these people are trying to say. I mean, like escapism, I think that loophole could suggest an avoidance of things, like because we want what we want, and if nothing else, witchcraft will give it to us, okay, which is not always the case, okay? There have been many a times where, you know, you do something and then you, like back in the beginning, you know, you kind of doubt, or your spells didn't work or whatever, and then you go to YouTube or a blog and you think, this must have happened to someone else, and then you realize that it has happened to other people, and then they give you like a list of things of why your magic didn't work. But yeah, so in my mind it means like some kind of loophole is like that fine print, that way that you can get what you want with minimal enforcement, but none of it really would have any meaning in the end. Like a loophole only works if someone's actually looking for it. In most contracts, the loopholes that could be found would be only to the ones that need the loophole. And I don't know, I think that in business and in petitions, okay, in terms of witchcraft terms, in petitions and pacts and stuff like that, the fine print would only need to be, it's only for like cautionary, to be honest. I don't necessarily think that it would apply every single time you made a pact or did a petition or wrote out a spell, you know? I don't necessarily think that the loophole needs to be found with every single one of them. But for someone to say, again, this umbrella term that witchcraft is a loophole just means that, okay, well, maybe for you, you're constantly doing things, but looking at the best case scenario, the worst case scenario. You're never looking in the middle of any of that. And you're always trying to read the fine print, which ultimately scares you into doing anything at all. So you're just sitting there as a armchair practitioner. So I will say that if you are an armchair practitioner that believes witchcraft is a loophole, you're not going to be doing any magic or witchcraft anyway. You're just going to be sitting there. And I will say that when that happens, nothing good or bad is going to happen to you, because nothing's going to happen to you. So that's what I feel. If you're always worried about the fine print, then you'll end up talking yourself out of any magical working. Probably the last one, the last comment that I'll talk about here, is that it's a controlled environment. Someone actually said this to me before, that witchcraft is a controlled environment. It's for people that have control issues, and it's for people that possibly as a trauma response, you've led a life that was seemingly out of your control, and so therefore witchcraft provides you with a methodology for you to have some control over your life. Now, I'm not going to disagree with this, because I believe that in so much, especially for me, my practice and inside my craft, there is a lot of I'll say controlled substance. A good foundation to work from, you know, which again, I think is needed. But then on the basis of all of that, a controlled environment can be restrictive. And so many times, I'm going to blast this by saying this, that in so many times that I've performed magic and done my thing in the craft, I've actually had to relinquish control, and I've had to be okay with that. Now, I've never had any control issues. I tend to be relatively okay with giving up the gauntlet, okay? I just don't have any like lingering issues with that. I'm okay with someone else controlling the situation, but I've learned how to be okay with that because I know how to be observant. I know how to assess all my situations I've ever been in. And it's just about paying attention, you know, like if someone else is controlling you or controlling a situation or something like that, you just need to be paying attention. And if anything ever gets to where you're uncomfortable or like, hey, I'm backing the hell out, then you can back the hell out. There's nothing against that. So it's just about paying attention and being like, I will say internally assertive with yourself. I am, at least when it comes to that. But yeah, there's been so many times that I've relinquished control, especially in like my deity work. Okay. And the whole like let go and let goddess, you know. But then there's so many times where like I'll say when I say I do a spell, the control is there because I've pretty much mapped out a good spell to myself, right? Like I'm not doubting it. I'm very confident about it, and it takes this kind of internal assertiveness with myself that I project onto the spell. But then there's an aspect of after it's all said and done, I can't be fussy with it and hold it like this and be like, do something. You know, I can't like do that. You know, it's like holding a bird too tight. I can't do that. I can't be like that. So relinquishing the control and being like, just here you go. And then you set it upon something, and then it just like gently, like a twinkling fountain, it just kind of hits magic right here to do what it's going to do. And you have to let it. So that's just a small portion of you relinquishing the control. One thing about a controlled environment in witchcraft is that somehow people think that inside of a witchcraft practice or a magic practice, that somehow all the angles are magically realized. And like, because someone would assume, all these are really assumptions too, probably from these people that may not really get it, okay? Don't know, because tone inside of a comment is hard to ascertain. But I think some people could, again, misconstrue and assume that witchcraft and magic provide this kind of, you know, everything that could happen, right? And you know all the angles magically inside of your head. As soon as you make up a spell, you somehow know all the angles. You don't. You're not going to, okay? What did Galadriel say? Even the wisest cannot tell, okay? And that's so true. You hear wizards and stuff and witches of old saying that for thousands of years. Even the wisest person couldn't tell all the futures. You can't tell all the angles. And knowing that is a part of relinquishing the control. Because There's no way you could say, okay, well, this could happen and this could happen and this can happen, and go down the spectrum of best and worst case scenario, okay, and see where it would probably fall, right? Like, the best you could do is guess. But again, it goes into paying attention and being somewhat a relinquishing, assertive practitioner. So anyway, that's what they say it is. I'm going to end the video with saying what some things I think witchcraft are. Like, if I chose to go into someone's videos and blogs and whatever and comment on their stuff that's inside their own personal practice, then some things I could potentially say in a good vein are witchcraft is a window. Not only a window, but it could be a mirror. Witchcraft has taught me so much about myself, right? But then with looking at myself, I've noticed so many other things about human nature, right? That's the window part. I can look out the window and see human nature and an evolutionary chain, an ancestral chain that links me to everyone that's walking on the face of the earth, right? And witchcraft has kind of provided this window, and then also this mirror to myself. So it can be both of those. It can be both reflective surfaces, translucent or otherwise. Another aspect that witchcraft has taught me in terms of the self, in terms of the mirror, is my own like sovereignty, I would say, the divinity within me. As a form of a spiritual practice I abide, is the working with the sovereignty of myself, but then working also with the humanity of myself. It's been transformative. It's been liberating. There's been so many times, and it's been like, with liberation, I do want to say that it's a respite, you know, like, is witchcraft a respite? Yes, it can be a soft place for you to land. It can be a transformative place for you to go. It can be so healing. Your practice can be so healing. I think that that's the reason why we have these practices, is for the healing, transformative properties that it would have, you know? And when I mesh my witchcraft and my spirituality together, I find a lot of healing. I find a lot of transformation, and I find a lot of the divinity and the sovereignty within myself. And liberation in terms of like, I have always came to my practice in liberatory terms, okay? To unlock the chains. Not to be controlling, not to be a loophole, not to be an escape, not to be a crutch, but just to, sometimes I want to go to my craft as a healing, transformative liberator. I can liberate myself, and through my practice and others' practice, say you even work in a community, right? That's your witchcraft and that community practice or that coven practice or whatever of unlocking chains for many other people that may be oppressed, you know? So it becomes a liberator all on its own. There was one thing I saw on, I think it was Pinterest, and it said something about my childhood wonder. My childlike wonder is ancient, right? And I think I posted it to Instagram. And it was, witchcraft keeps me enchanted. Boy, does it ever, okay? The childlike wonder that I used to have, this imaginative, beautiful, wondrous childhood of being in my own head and being up in the clouds and thinking and daydreaming and stuff. It was I was left to be in the yard, right? Like, we had a big yard, and I climbed trees and skint my knees and played with the chickens and the goats and the animals. And it was a time for me to be, there was so much time in my childhood to be with my own thoughts and to make up stuff, and just, I was a daydreamer, okay? Really, really big one. And growing up, there was so much of it's a phase, you know, like, you just need to have a practical life and get out of the childlike wonder, but I never, ever lost it. And that was the one thing that witchcraft did. It allowed me to keep it alive. I didn't let it die. I didn't want to let it die. Why would I want to let it die? So this enchantment and this glamour that I had when I was a child, my childlike wonder isn't childlike. It's aged. It's wise. And it's been with me, and I've nurtured it, and it's grown with me, and it's surpassed me, and it's somehow old as time now. And I love that saying. I love the whole concept of that saying, because it did. The last thing I'd probably say about witchcraft is that it's kept my wonder alive and my enchantment for the world alive. In a world especially that you really want to lose the faith in humanity, witchcraft has been such a huge way that I've pulled myself back up to the clouds to find my faith again, to find my wonder and play again. So it's been a lot of things, and it could be some of the things we talked about that people comment. You know, it can be those things. They're just generalizations that I don't necessarily think need to apply, not in any kind of derogatory way. So anyway, okay, we have talked and talked. So leave me your thoughts. What do you think about these terms? Okay, I'll probably leave some timestamps for you below, okay, along with some other resources that I've talked about. Hope everyone's having a magical day. Much love.